Lamar Jackson, who started the game as 5-1 to win the MVP, is now the favorite at minus 160. Then you got CMC at 4-1. And the wild card here, not just because I live in South Florida, Tua at 9-1 to win the MVP. Tua, by the way, jumps up from 14-1 to 9-1. And Tua and Lamar see each other on Sunday as the Miami Dolphins go to Baltimore for what probably will be the number one seed in the AFC.
You mentioned GameStop. Brock Purdy's stock just literally went from the floor display at GameStop to a generic case game stacked in there where you have to like read the spine to know what the game is. Like
he is an open box discount.
He's
an
open
box
box
discount. That's what he is right now.
Look, what they did in Vegas damn near was just take the minus, put a stick on top of the minus. They could have made it plus two. They could have made it plus 275, 27.5. Look, Brock Purdy absolutely just killed his chances for the race. And let's just face it, he's not going to get the Blind Side movie. You know, like they probably just halted production from Mr. Irrelevant, the Disney film. It's done now. You know, that's it looked like he was the last pick last night. But yesterday when we were on the show, I had mentioned, and I don't like tooting my own horn, but hey, if you've got a horn in front of you, blow it. I said Lamar Jackson was going to come into last night's game and say, hey, y'all, don't forget about me. I've won this MVP thing. And I said, I might throw for over 220. I might run for about 70. And you're going to say, oh, how did I forget about you? And that's exactly what happened. I always thought that, now granted, with Brock Purdy's story, there was always going to be that case to really push him. And I think that's why he was such a heavy favorite. But I thought also, if it wasn't him, Christian McCaffrey would probably be the odds-on favorite to win it because of what he's doing, which is damn near breaking records. But now, after what happened last night, I mean, I joked, hey, Lamar Jackson might go in there and kill two birds with one stone. And, well, clearly that seagull went, that's Brock Purdy. And Christian McCaffrey didn't really jump off the page last night because of those mistakes of Brock Purdy. So Lamar Jackson is that guy right now. And let's just call it what it is. In these next two games, if he improves, I mean, you could go ahead and give him the trophy. I mean, you could bring it to his house. I mean, that's just how clear cut it's going to be. If he beats Miami next week, then I think you have to say this is your MVP, because now you say, oh, he lost in like he would have to have a Brock Purdy week to lose the race now at this point. And Christian McCaffrey would probably have to rush for 220 yards in a game with 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and now, I think the biggest drawback that McCaffrey has is that, I mean, let's face it, the MVP is a quarterback's award. So to me, it's now between Lamar, who is the far favorite, and Tua. And the fact that they play each other next week in Baltimore is going to be awesome, because I still think it's not over yet in terms of Lamar winning the MVP, because Lamar's got a tough schedule. Got the Dolphins and they've got the Steelers. Both teams, Miami obviously fighting for that number one seed, while Pittsburgh's trying to get into the playoffs. San Francisco, a lot easier road. They're at Washington next week, and they host the Rams the last game of the season. So there's a lot of numbers that can be padded for CMC and for Tua as well. Tua's got the Ravens and the Bills on his dance card. So I think it's not over yet. I think Lamar is definitely the favorite. But all of a sudden, if Tua goes up to Baltimore and puts on some serious yardage, puts up 3 or 4 touchdowns, look out. We could have a serious race for the NFL MVP. Anytime, we talked about how the NBA is great when the marquee teams are great. The NFL is great when the Cowboys are in turmoil. And here we go. The waters start to froth. It is the Lions and the Cowboys at Jerry's World. Dallas, despite losing, maybe because Detroit's got nothing to play for anymore. Although that's not true. They won the division, but they're only a game. They're tied for the top seed. They all have 11 wins. Detroit, Philly, and San Francisco all have 11 wins. It's Dallas -6, plump total of 53.5.
Ooh. This is going to be a fascinating game, because Detroit, I think, is really going to have to put their foot on the gas to prove that, hey, we got to show that we can beat one of these other teams on the road if we end up with the 3 seed. That means at some point we're going to end up potentially having to go on the road to get to the Super Bowl, right? So barring something crazy happening earlier. So this is one of those situations where you're going to get a full effort. And this is the other part with Dallas. We've joked that, look, if they're in the 4 spot, you know who your number 5 seed team is. If you're in the, if you're the 5 seed, you know who you're playing as the 4. So they don't have to worry about that. But you do wonder what the conversation would be if the Lions come to Dallas and beat them and the Cowboys have lost 2 straight. We would be so far away from the conversation about the Cowboys potentially being the best team in the NFC and in part of the argument as one of the best teams in the NFL just 3 weeks ago. This is what makes football such a great sport, not only for betting, but just how neurotic it is, right? So this is a big game for the Cowboys. So I like the Lions in the +6 to cover. I mean, to cover the spread, just because I think Dallas has shown that they can't do anything with the running game from short distances. And Detroit can air it out with everybody. I wonder with Stephon Gilmore, he took a pretty big hit in that game. If he's not available or if he's questionable going into next week's game, that's going to be a big part of solidifying what Dallas can do on defense, even though Miami was able to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I think Dallas wins the game, KJ, but I don't think they cover. So I think this is a great teasable game. Maybe put Detroit up to 12, bring it down to like 47.5 and take the over. I mean, there are going to be points in this game. For as good as Dallas's defense has been, I think Detroit's offense is just as good. And I think that we know Detroit has no defense at all. So I like you give me Goff and Dak, defenses, pick sixes. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think Dallas ends up winning just because Dallas is so good at home. They're terrible on the road, so good at home. But I think Detroit covers. And again, this is a great teasable game in the mix. You've got the number 25 team in the country, Kansas, against, if you're a gambler, you always got to root for UNLV. So it's Kansas and UNLV in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Talk about a number, KJ. Kansas laying 13.5, 67.5 is the total against the 153rd ranked defense versus the 200th ranked defense. That they could have that at halftime.
And quote this, because when will you ever hear me say smash the over on 67.5? That look, Kansas is going to there to run the score, and we were talking about third string quarterbacks. Man, you're going to see third string kickers get in there for Kansas. I mean, it's just going to be, we're bringing 100 guys and 101 guys are playing. So, that's what you're looking at. UNLV, they have no defense, but they've got Vegas behind them. You've got some people going to be able to hang out, take a little trip come down through the mountainside, through the desert, hang out in Phoenix. So you're going to have a high-scoring team. You're going to have Vegas people hanging out in Phoenix. It's going to be a lot. This is going to be a fun game to watch because it's going to be – you remember the old people say, it's going to be like a pinball game. Well, nobody plays pinball like that anymore. This is going to be like, I don't know, like a crypto shoot, it's going to be a good one.
Man, this is going to be an old-school AFC West Charlie Jones play-by-play kind of game. Again, it's going to be in the 80s, this game. So, and I'm not just talking
Merlin
about
Olsen
the weather.
With me.